All right. I'm joined again by Andrew, the nine-figure media buyer. He works with some huge US brands and some household names that you probably know. Thanks for joining me, Andrew.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be chatting again.
Yeah, likewise. So what we wanted to talk about today, we get a lot of messages from e-com brands asking for useful tools or softwares. I mean, basically people looking for the secret sauce, but I think what we often miss is what you need is right under your nose, and you organize a lot of your scaling docs inside of Google Sheets, which is great because it's something that anybody can replicate and anybody can use. And I know that you've templatized it for everybody watching so they can really basically take what you're doing for nine-figure brands and replicate it inside of their own business.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of tools and software out there that you can get and pay monthly for, have the client pay monthly for, but I just find that you can get a lot done with Google Sheets in a very efficient way. And once you build out the templates, you don't really need to reinvent the wheel. And it integrates pretty seamlessly with most stuff. So we try to build most of our tracking dashboards and delivery dashboards in-house just to give us also a layer of customization for the client, because not every client's going to have the same needs or the same volume of creative.
Yeah, so you're not using any special reporting softwares, right? You do a lot of your reporting internally in Google Sheets.
For the most part, yeah, some of our clients will use Motion, which we find to be a really effective tool. We're actually currently using a tool called Atria, which is getting more and more use from our team in the realm of creative. It is a mix between foreplay and motion and has a lot of AI recommendations, which is great, but it doesn't solve the delivery process, which our agency's been able to really optimize for a lot of brands that are testing a high volume of creative, because there's a lot that can get mixed in that process, from creative export to ad account.
So when you say delivery, you're talking about actually launching ads in the account, right?
Yeah, by staged, basically getting the ad from the client into the ad account. There's a lot that can happen in that pipeline, especially larger teams have more stakeholders, more cooks in the kitchen, different ideas on creative. Especially if you have creative that's coming from multiple sources, maybe some creatives coming from their influencer or affiliate team, maybe other creatives coming from an agency they work with. Then there's some creative that is coming from the brand. So you really have to make sure that pipeline is streamlined and optimized in order to, one, prevent anything going out that's not approved by the brand or optimal, and then also just making the whole creative upload process efficient.
So aside from software tools, are you using anything internally, like spreadsheets to document that process?
Yeah, so the first thing we do with clients is we figure out who is the creative stakeholder on their team and really try to have them nail down one person that delivers us all the assets. Over over time we've evolved this process, but we found that bigger brands, because they have so many stakeholders, you might get a video here in Slack and then you might get an email from the CEO with an image, and you just have all these mixed signals coming in. And one of the first things we do is we we squeeze the pipeline and say, okay, listen, we don't actually post anything unless it comes from this person and it's in this sheet. So we do use a spreadsheet, and we train the client on how to categorize the ads in the spreadsheet so that we know that once there's a link in that spreadsheet, that ad is good to go, and there's no more sign off, there's no more approvals, there's no questions, so that when that ad gets seen in the wild, it limits the risk of something potentially being off.
Right. Yeah, you post something that maybe you shouldn't have, or you didn't have permission to use, or you grabbed it from socials. So if it's not in that spreadsheet, if it's organized in that way, then it doesn't go live.
Yeah, exactly. And permission to use is a big one, because when you're working with influencer content or affiliate, sometimes there's an expiration date on it. So we also ensure that the creative assets itself are exported with specific naming conventions. So if there is an expiration date, that date is actually embedded in the asset name and in the file itself, so that we don't have any confusion once it goes to the ad account of when that ad should be off.
That's really smart. Yeah, that's something that we started doing as well, is just adding launch dates and expiration dates in all of our assets. You don't really need a launch date because you can find it in the account, but just for searching purposes, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of putting a date on everything. And I'm very specific on the way that we do dates too, and the way that we do naming conventions, because really when those names are going into these bigger data sets or these bigger polls, it's important that there's like naming consistency across everything, every ad account, every ad, every channel. Because some clients, for instance, they're using Tableau, or maybe they're using in platform, or they have a different data warehouse. You want to be able to query the ad and know that query that you created, whether it's a date or a type of creative, that is consistent with everything else in their system. It
Right, and
just
not
makes
just
reporting a lot
consistent in
cleaner.
one ad account, consistent across all of their ad accounts, all of their asset libraries, however they organize their creative, it has to be the same naming convention.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's
that makes sense.
usually the first thing we do when we come on a new account as well is just update the naming conventions, as most agencies do, so that it's streamlined.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm sure everybody would love to see it. I know that you have this really detailed built out spreadsheet that helps with naming conventions. Is that could we peel behind the curtain and take a look?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of the first things we send the client when we're onboarding, and it's really a master spreadsheet for creative. So the goal here, we have the kind of directions on the first page, is how to use this document and how to name the creative based on the product, the format, themes, occasion, and this is obviously our responsibility as well. So this is really a collaborative document. So whoever the stakeholder is on the brand is going to manage this function, and then we're going to manage these functions of the sheet. But this is essentially what it looks like. Is the client will come in here, they're going to put the ad name, launch date, when they actually put the ad in, and then what we do with every single ad is we code it. Um, and this will eventually, as you get more ads, it'll this naming convention will just continue to expand. And one of the reasons we do that is because you might have an ad that really crushes it, but to be able to go look it up by either like a video number or a image number or an ad number just makes it a lot cleaner in the way that you pull the data. And then we'll put creative type, uh, product name. This is obviously really important. One thing you'll notice here too is that we have underscores after every naming convention. And the idea is that once that goes into the ad account, if you just look up, for instance, that I want to know all the ads that were launched on that date, if I put an underscore after or before it, it's going to single out just that parameter, not any of the other features. So if I look up CE1001 underscore, it's only going to pull that up because there's this division here. And I just find underscores are a lot cleaner than dashes
This
in
is
this
stuff that
case.
this is the type of organization you only get with experience.
Yeah, it takes when you're looking at some of our client sheets here have thousands of ads in it. You really need to be able to create filters and sort it by different parameters. For instance, if we just want to look at all the statics for a specific product name, you can do that and you can pull up the 50 ads that they have in the bank for that product, a static, and you can filter and slice and dice it any way you want. This is especially important when you're bringing other media buyers into the ecosystem and you have multiple media buyers on an account. You can say, hey, you're running the t-shirt vertical. This other media buyer is running the shorts, or just that's an example of maybe how you divide labor on an account, or you split it up by different functions. But having it all live on one sheet, but being you know filtered by various parameters is essential. We'll put in ad themes. Sometimes there's an occasion, like it's for a spring drop collection, or maybe it's a Christmas, like holiday ad, or we want to put that in the naming convention as well and just understand it. And then the other part is this would be a URL. Wherever that asset actually lives, the client's going to go in and drop the URL to that asset that's being described in this row. And then as well, they're going to drop the landing page URL that goes here. So we know this asset goes with this URL. And then, of course, then we come in and once it's staged, we have a implementation specialist. Their whole job is just to put creative into the account and get it ready. So they'll come in, they'll upload it, they'll build the ad, they'll click staged. And then the senior media buyer will come through and approve it. And if it's approved and ready to launch, they'll hit launch. And then we'll drop the preview link in here so the client can come in and look at that ad anytime they want. So we find this is extremely important when you're managing thousands of different pieces of creative and different types of ads, especially this part in the yellow here, because this is where our checks and balances are. We have essentially 2 layers of approval before it goes out. somebody stages it, and then a senior person will approve it and generally deploy it as well.
See,
The
that's so
sec
important. You think about the launching process for an account that's at $500 a day versus an account that's at $200,000 a day. If you don't have that double layer of approval, things can go out that you didn't have the intention of spending a bunch of money on. So yeah, this is
ab-
so good. Just such a strong level of organization.
absolutely. And the other thing, what we find a lot is maybe the asset and the ad unit, everything's correct, but maybe it has the wrong URL that it's directing to. And that's an easy mistake to make for media buyers. They're duplicating ads, they're shifting creative. There's a ton of things that can be missed just because of the sheer volume of it. So yeah, that double layer of approval is extremely important. Then copy is the other piece of this document. We'll either write the copy or the client will have a copy bank that we'll work from, or they'll write specific copy for ads. One thing we'll do is we'll also maintain a copy bank for that client where if there's a specific ad that has copy that's associated with it, we'll put it ad name in here. But that ad name will come from column A of this other sheet. And then we'll put the various copy options here. There's a little character counter, which helps with headlines and text. Um, and the copy will live here. And then you can see these are just some examples, CTA, some of the other elements. And then with this ad, we'll just identify what row that copy comes from so that this media buyer knows what copy to use when they upload this ad.
This is such a good checkpoint. You've accounted for every variable, and it's really easy to cross-reference your work, especially if you're launching, like in your case, you guys are launching hundreds of creatives every week. It's just if you don't have the right system and organization in place, you're going to get lost so easily, and you're going to be relying on sorting through performance columns, basically, like sorting through
Exactly.
cost per acquisition or ROAS or whatever your KPI is. Without this level of naming, you're just going to get buried in the data.
Yep, exactly. It's all about clean data in equals clean data out. So we start it with very clean naming conventions, very consistent, very organized, because really the output here, and this is what matters, is, and most of the brands we work with, we were actually just signed a new brand, not because the previous agency's performance was poor, it was just because the testing process was suboptimal. You have a creative team that's investing a lot of time and energy into building new ads, and they're not getting the feedback on those ads that they need to continue to optimize. So the last part of this sheet is if the client isn't using something like Motion or another tool to really assess how that creative's doing, we can actually pipe that data from the ad account right back into this sheet so they can look at the ad. This would be the ad name from the previous one or previous sheet, platform it's running on, and we can put spend, ROAS, CAC, AOV, all the necessary metrics in here that are relative or important for them to know. So that's a big part of it, because really what clients are looking for is just a feedback loop and a team that's going to exaggerate that iteration process. I'm going to launch, test creative fast and get insights back quickly so that the team can iterate and we can relaunch. It's this ending cycle of optimization that is really what allows these larger accounts to scale.
And I mean, that's the name of the game for these nine-figure brands. There's no such thing as set it and forget it. There's no such thing as like, accounts looking good, we don't need changes today. It's a constant process of launching new creative, of iterating and testing and getting back a ton of data, communicating that data to the team. It's like it needs to work like such a machine. And if you leave anything up to being subjective, it's just an opportunity for a lot of lost revenue.
Exactly. Yep. And what we found is the accounts that perform the best are the accounts that are the most systematized. So with the larger accounts, we've talked a bit about weekly creative launches, weekly optimization, weekly budget adjustments, and just making sure that there's rhythm. There's a rhythm to the algorithm. It functions at the pace of humanity, right? It goes up and down based on various demand and inventory cycles and user time on app, and it's this living, breathing thing. But at its core, it's there's a rhythm to it, and there's a math equation to it. And so when you approach media buying as you would like a math formula, with consistency and with rhythm, you'll find that you'll get the best results because you're speaking the language of the algorithm. It doesn't like quick pivots and fast changes, and you really want to learn to work with the system that's You want to work with the engine, not against it. And so learning that tempo and learning that rhythm of what works best for the account is really important.
How did you figure all this out? Because I don't think this is something that it feels like one of those lessons that you have to learn on your own or learn through experience. Like where'd you gather all this and figure out that the algorithm is like a living, breathing organism and not just something that you can, try to control?
Yeah, I think it's if you look at enough data over time and you start to analyze patterns and you learn and you keep very meticulous logs of what you did and how it affected things. And the thing is too, is it's always changing. It's different last year than it is now, and it's going to be different next year. So being approaching it like a scientist in a lot of ways and making sure you're always measuring, testing, staying open to new ideas. But I think you kind of learn over time. It's like a ship captain can learn to read the water and read the tides. You learn to read the weather, so to say, as a media buyer.
See, and this is the part of media buying that I think goes unnoticed or is really underrated because now, since Meta and Instagram are so creative led in your performance, there's not a lot that you can do on the targeting side of things. It's really the creative that's going to lead your targeting. I think conversations like this don't happen enough where it's talking about creative testing and attribution and understanding last click metrics. Like all these things, they're kind of unsexy topics and they're not the most fun conversations to have. But it is the conversation that's required if you want to get to that nine-figure level.
Absolutely. It's essential, and creative is the new targeting. So what does that mean and how do we unpack that? The other part we didn't really touch on in this sheet is we're leading a lot of clients now to double down on persona testing rather than thinking about their various types of creative, like a video versus a GIF and a image with a headline and what's that look like. Start thinking about your customer and who those cohorts are. Is it a mom, 35 to 45, or is it a grandma that's 65 plus? Both are probably buying the same product, but both are distinctly different. And the way that you formulate your ads are going to target one or the other. That's something that you've got to be really conscious of on the creative side and in briefing a client and briefing creatives is who that persona is that you're trying to speak to and making sure that they're nailing it. And sometimes it might be a persona that you're trying to lean into. You're trying to expand that market share with a Gen Z audience. So in that case, you're thinking on things of like, all right, we need a younger model. We need them to speak in a very specific way. The edits have to be a little tighter, faster paced, because this is how we're going to go attack that persona group, as opposed to maybe a grandma that's just buying a gift for their grandchild. It's a much different type of ad.
That's so interesting. Yeah, same product, completely different persona, even right down to the editing type. That's so interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nothing new. It's marketing, and performance marketers their performance now is coming from their ability to be good marketers, not their ability to just an ad account and use poor creative and let Facebook's targeting engine just get you the sales that you need. But it really requires a lot more depth and thought on how you approach the market with your product.
Yeah, it feels like now more than ever, the media buying team needs to be really aligned with the creative team and give that feedback. And as a media buyer, you need to understand the customer persona as much as the creative team and vice versa.
Absolutely. Yep, it's essential nowadays.
So another thing that we spoke about off camera is tracking the actual numbers. So pacing, contribution, and how you look at your MER as a whole. I think you had a resource for that. I know that it would be super valuable for anybody watching.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a number of resources for this that we use. This is the most boiled down version. Really, what we're wanting to look at when we're working with a brand is what their monthly target is, whether it's spend or total sales, where we're pacing month to date against that target. And then generally we'll include like an L7 average in here. And then the other big factor clients often overlook or they're looking at just in a different way and media buyers aren't as attuned to it is just that those contribution dollars. So we have a little calculator and daily pacing sheet that we use. This is a boiled down version of some of the bigger ones. But really what you want to look at is day of the week, date, the amount of money you spent, and then the amount of money that came back. And this is all obviously dummy data here, but This calculator essentially can plug in with you'll have three tabs. You'll have all of your Shopify data you'll export into here, all of your Facebook data into this one, all of your Google data into this one, or any other channels. You'll basically have one sheet that for each channel that all that data gets dumped to, and then you'll pull it into a pivot table over here that will update on a daily basis your spend, your revenue. You can add a number of things in here too. You can add number of new customers, conversion rates, anything you really want, but these are some of the key ones that we recommend folks start to look at initially. And then this contribution margin formula, which is a very top level, simple formula to just say, how much money did we put in the bank today with our ads against our COGS? So the way this works is it's your total sales. Now, this total sales number is something you'll need to align on how you pull that, because obviously Shopify will report a few different metrics for that: gross revenue, total sales, which obviously it either includes taxes, shipping and return, or doesn't. So you want to land on a source of truth for that. We recommend just total sales. But the way this formula works is total sales times your gross margin. So if you're estimating after COGS and OPEX, your margin is about 33%, you would put that in here. And this is before ads, before your variable costs. OPEX, COGS, what's your margin there? You would put that in here. So it's your total sales times that margin minus your ad spend. One of the most simple contribution margin formulas there are, but you can see here that the way that this works out, it's going to tell you your true number on what you contributed to the business based on ads. If we were
It's your
to
bottom line, basically.
Exactly. If we were to scale this up to 5,000, 6,000, and so on, we'll do that. These are just very boilerplate numbers. So I don't have the formulas built out on here, but I'll fix that for these other ones. But basically what this will do is this is going to tell you what your bottom line is, what you drove via ads that day. So let's say this number here was actually 5,000. That's going to move our contribution dollars up quite a bit.
Right.
If our total sales this day was 10,000, that's going to move our contribution dollars up significantly here. So what you'll want to do is you want to track this on a daily basis, and you want to have your monthly goals, and you want to basically have your media buyers tracking to this, because what'll happen here is you could spend more but make less because you're not efficient, or you can spend less but make more because your ads are more efficient. So this formula is going to keep you pretty honest here. The key is finding the sweet spot of where you can spend the most and drive the most contribution dollars, because at the end of the day, it's not about your Meta ROAS. It's not about your Google ROAS. It's not even about your MER. It's actually, you can see here when we contributed 2,200, the MER was actually very low. You can actually, this formula isn't pulling through. I'll fix that. You can basically, it gives you a good pulse on what you should be focusing on and where you're actually sitting. Driving towards a MER target is great. That's probably the safest metric, but really what you should be optimizing towards is your contribution dollars, because that's really the money that you're making. So we
And
have this
that's an important
calculator.
distinction. We spoke about that last week, because if you're always focused on MER and you're, let's say, an 8 or 9 figure brand, data and attribution is really difficult to figure out, especially if you're just relying on platform attribution. So if you're focused only on MER, you can end up chasing your tail, retargeting past customers that are probably going to buy anyways. Your MER is going to look great, but you're just retargeting a finite audience, and it's a short-term gain. But if you're looking at
Exactly.
contribution dollars, this is accounting for how much revenue are we bringing into the business, regardless of efficiency. And this is primarily going to focus on new customers, because that's where the majority of your revenue is going to continue to grow, where your long-term growth is.
Exactly. And one thing you might do is you might add a column in here, which we recommend a lot of brands do, and you say first timer, right? And you only pull the revenue from new customers. And
And how
this
would you
might actually be
segregate
a
that
one.
for retargeting revenue?
So this revenue is going to be all of the revenue from net new orders. So new people to the business, versus returning MER is going to be all the revenue from people who already are customers. So like subscription businesses, you might have a very low first time MER, but it's because you're on a subscription and they're going to come back every month, and that's okay. You can eat that. Or other way to look at it is first ROAS, but we really like looking at first time MER because really it's like, all right, how much money did you spend and how much new revenue did you bring into the business?
Yeah.
Um,
And
and
that's what allows
typically,
you to think long term because you can measure MER against LTV and figure out, okay, if my
exactly,
MER is a 0.3, but my LTV is 6 months, then my lifetime MER is 2.
exactly. So that's the key is as you drill into the numbers further, picking the right targets to optimize towards. So
So
then
important.
the contribution margin formula would really be the same just against first time MER. Um, and you might have a negative contribution on first time MER, and a lot of the revenue that you're capturing is coming from those second, third, fourth purchases, which is okay. You just want to know it and be able to track it and optimize around it.
That first time MER applying to software is really interesting. That's something that I've been considering a lot more when building a mobile app is like what's our actual lifetime value for customers and then what's our cost to acquire them. And there's a whole bunch of other conversion metrics in between, but I think the key here, especially for e-com brands, is not to just focus on first month MER. You have
Yeah,
to focus on this like 3, 6, 12-month timeline to really capture and get a big picture of the growth that you're having in an ad account.
absolutely. And that's another thing we see a lot is we'll jump into a brand and the first thing we look for is like, all right, what are the hero products? And generally everybody already knows what that is. And then what are the secondary products? But then really what's the product that we're not looking at? What's a product that's bringing new customers into the door and has a high repeat customer rate that actually could potentially be a hero product? For a large cosmetics brand we work with, we found a product using Northbeam that had a high first time purchase rate and also a high repeat purchase rate within a month window, meaning the rate that people purchase a second product after purchasing this first product was higher than their hero product. So we said, hey, let's position some of our spend to actually make this other one more of a hero product. Let's give it more of the spend share because our payback cycle on that's actually a lot faster than some of our other products that we're advertising right now. Um, and that has a compounding effect on the business because suddenly you're infusing it with uh, the right type of customers, not just people that are going to buy a one-off product, but it's people that are going to continue to come back because there's something about the secondary product that they're liking. That's where it gets really, really fun is you can build strategy around that LTV cycle and that payback cycle.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And you could split up that calculator for different products and like compare the payback cycle for each one. Yeah, I mean this is a really good jumping off point, but I can see how it would get a lot more complicated as you continue to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good formula to start with. As you evolve, your sheets and your tables are going to continue to evolve as well.
And that's why you do it in Google Sheets because it's customizable for every client, for every brand. It's always going to look different. But yeah, I mean this is a pretty good
Exactly.
baseline template that's going to work for, 99% of Shopify brands.
Yeah, it's going to keep you in the right direction and keep you from losing your shirt, so to say, on advertising.
Definitely. Definitely. Well, that's awesome. I'm really happy that you shared these with us. Thank you, everybody. We're going to link it in the YouTube description below. And if you're watching this on Shorts, just comment the word scale and we'll DM you the resources.
Cool. Thanks a lot. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.